So the other day I was in like deep thought about being born and kind of the implications about how the way you come into this life, kind of determines how well, your life can progress. And not the most, not given like the most obvious, right? Because let's say you're born into like riches, then obviously your life is on easy mode. Or we like to quote unquote say it's on easy mode, like everyone's life is different, but you have, I guess, an easier starting point than someone who's, I don't know, less fortunate, someone who was born into like poverty or war. You know, those things are obviously what I would say the obvious because those determinant factors are quite extreme on the outlier scale. But for everyone else who's watching this video, my point is that if you're in the middle ground, I don't know, I was thinking about how I never really thought of my starting point in my life as a, you know, a really predetermining factor at what I could do. But the more that I think about it, the more I'm like, wait a second, like there's so many things in my life that I never had control of, and I've been really harsh on myself because I've been thinking about how I got to this point in my life, and I'm like thinking like, man, how did it get here? How did I get here? Because I'm really not at a place I want to be at. And then I started thinking about how much, like, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? What parts do I control? And sometimes there are things out of our reach, and I like to think, well, I want to blame it on the things that I can't control as to why my life got here, but let's just say that I've come to a more rationalized approach to what I was thinking about. But I was thinking about this because, well, a bunch of co-op students, summer interns are leaving my company that I work for, my corporate company. And the new set of interns are rolling in, and these ones are leaving, and the one that I had on my team, he's leaving. He was really great. But what is the thing that they all had in common? It's the fact that they all had someone, some connection in the company, whether it be a parent or a relative or a friend or someone. I mean, they're mainly relatives. Let's be real here. It's mainly relatives, like someone's, the summer student's mom or dad. They knew when they got him into the company, and nepotism's so real. And I'm not gonna even act like I wasn't even into the company as well. My mom works here, so I was just thinking, as much as I feel for some of these kids who have been here for a while, you know, and how I for some of them I just have a genuine distaste for, because I feel like, you know, some of them kind of don't really deserve the role or whatever. They got it because, mama and papa got them in, and I can be a hater. Like I've I've kind of had a bit of the distaste mindset towards some of them, just because I know how the outlook of, some of the I'm losing the word here, but the outlook of, it's not discography, it starts with a D. I keep forgetting words these days, even like my last video, I don't even know what I'm saying. It's not discography, it's like, demographic. I think that's what I was thinking of, the demographic of, the people who are here. Who, the summer students that got here. If you don't understand what I'm saying, it's basically just a bunch of Caucasian folk. And, like their connection are obviously the higher ups, like the senior managers, directors, blah, 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 right? And, it's just crazy because, like, I was walking past by my summer student who was, a tall Caucasian white guy, who's He's just kind of like the average white guy build, to be honest. He's like the most standard corporate white guy ever. And he had like this group of people, and they were all like clones of him basically, and I just thought that was really fun. But at the same time, I'm thinking like, damn, these are gonna be the guys who take over this corporation. Let's be real here. And all I was thinking about is like, how could I climb the corporate ladder? I really can't. And you know, the more that I saw these people, the more that I think like, well, maybe, you know, it's just never meant to be in my life. You know, there's a lot of predetermining factors that, you know, we can't control. You know, I didn't choose the way that I grew up. I didn't choose like where I lived. I didn't choose the way you know, I grew up. Like I said, the opportunities that I chose. Well, actually, maybe that was me. But you know, other people's choices and luck, as they always say, you know, I can't choose those things. The only things that I did try my best on was the skills that I chose to develop, and you know, what what I chose to do in my own time, and what I chose to do in terms of like how I spend my time in general on how I like develop my skills, and not even just my skills, just other things in general. So like those things I can control, but these things, like I wasn't born into the freaking, you know, white Caucasian build family who can run the corporation after, you know, their generations of whatever has been working at this company. And you know, that's not a, you know, it's a bit of an exaggeration. Obviously they're not all like that. You know, sometimes I take a look and I maybe I misjudge, maybe I feel some type of way because I don't know, I just feel like after being at the place I am so far, it just feels like I've made no progress. But I don't know, at the end of the day, I feel like it's a balance of both. You know, it's not all, I can blame it all into how I grew up, and you know, like I was like, I could blame it like, oh, I wish I was born into, you know, a multi-millionaire family. But you know, I feel like there's more control over the trajectory than I really think that I had in my life versus the starting point that I was at, you know. I don't think like, let's just say the one thing I hear the most is with enough hard work, you know, like everyone's like, you can make it with hard work, you can make it with hard work, and I always thought I could believe that, to be completely honest. I always thought it was true, but the truth is that it's not always the case, you know. I don't think the hardest working person is the most successful person ever, you know. And even though you have people who come up from the trenches, you know, like I said, I feel like that's a bit of mix of luck and how they chose to spend their time, you know. Like maybe they just spent their time more wisely. Those things they could control as they spent their time wisely. But maybe it was luck, maybe it was right timing, maybe it was whatever. But I don't know, I feel like I need to stop comparing myself to all these people, because maybe it wasn't just meant to be, you know. If being born into something, if life is a game, then the way that you're brought into the world is like your base stats. You know what I'm saying? It's like your base stats. I just didn't have high enough base stats, I guess.